So it's a new month, and I am talking about forgiveness and loving kindness. Now, we are joining almost every other center for spiritual living. So we are HeartSpace Spiritual Center. We are a member community or an affiliate of the Centers for Spiritual Living, which is an international organization based out of Golden, Colorado. And we are joining every other center this month that I know of in the theme for the month, forgiveness and loving kindness. Now, all of the themes that the Centers for Spiritual Living are using this year come out of our global vision. And I don't want to read you the whole thing, but I want to tell you what specifically we're shaping this month around. We see a worldwide culture in which forgiveness, whether for errors, injustices, or debts, is the norm. We see a worldwide culture in which forgiveness, whether for errors, injustices, or debts, is the norm. Now, what I know when I hear something like that is like, yeah, they better get busy with that. Because I got this. Well, there's a phrase I grew up Catholic, and this was way too outside the bounds for Catholicism, but my best friend grew up in Protestantism, and he said that there's a phrase, when you hear something, it's called you've been convicted, right? Being convicted, like, boom, like, ugh. So I got convicted this week, multiple times. It was very different than the times I've been convicted in the distant past. Those times were not quite so fruitful. So I want to talk about forgiveness. And I want you to know, or I want to remind you of the thing about the adage that says the truth will set you free, but first it might make you mad. Do not shoot the messenger. So let's start by just sort of shaping what forgiveness is and what it's not. What I'm really sensitive to is this is a journey. This is a journey. And one of the things that happens is that we forget that we are in a different place on the journey than other people. And so whereas for me, after 15 years of therapy and 18 years of recovery and 12 years of the science of mind and spirit, I really have found a place where I understand that there's nothing to forgive. However, that took 15 years of therapy, 18 years of recovery, and 12 years of the science of mind. And so we encounter people at every place on the journey. And it's so important to recognize that wherever you are with the process of forgiveness, you're not in the wrong place. Now, if I've been having conversations with you for 5 years or 3 years or 2 years, and you're still in the same place, holding a resentment that's poisoning you, I'm going to push you on it a little bit, right? Because it's a journey. You don't build a house anywhere. And you don't skip parts of the journey. Because, see, when I first started the process of recovery in my own life, the process of awakening in my own life, I really intellectually got that, well, there's nothing to forgive. Everybody's just doing the best they can. Okay, but it was like, everybody's just doing the best they can. There's nothing to forgive. It's very different to have an intellectual understanding of something versus an embodied acceptance and serenity with it. They're very different things. So it's a journey. No place is wrong. Don't build a house anywhere. I'm going to read you a quote from the Science of Mind textbook. And in this quote, Ernest Holmes, the founder of the Science of Mind and Spirit, is talking about something out of Matthew chapter 18. Jesus clearly explains the meaning of divine forgiveness. He says that we should forgive until 70 times 7. This is but another way of saying that forgiveness is eternal and ever available. What a load is dropped from the shoulders of personal responsibility when we realize that the eternal holds not against anyone. Now, that's true. God, who is not just God, we don't have a person God, right? We have a presence God. And the essence of that presence is love. And it just doesn't make any sense that the presence of love would hold something against us. Right? The thing is, as human beings, well, we sort of, we would like to think sometimes, I think, that God holds something against the people that we hold something against. So Ernest Holmes goes on to say, to those who feel that this is unfair, the thing that God holds nothing against anyone, it will be a hard saying. What, says one, are not my virtues to be rewarded above those who have none? Oh, foolish one and blind, Ernest Holmes says, what do you know about virtue? Has your life always been beyond reproach? Have you never fallen short of the divine calling? Who are you to point the finger of scorn at your brother? The man who feels self-righteousness rise from his petty virtues lives a life of self-delusion. Know this: virtue does not know that it is virtuous. And could it know, it would immediately become vicious. Play a thought experiment with me. Think of those moments when you see, fill in the blank, Ted Cruz, Donald Trump, some foolish racist, somebody in your family who's super unconscious and driving you crazy, your landlord, your mortgage company, the government, right? I want you to think of that moment when you get hooked by something you see, hear, or feel. Vicious. Vicious. See, but the thing about that is what's it doing to them? Nothing. So I really, because I've told you guys before, I'm an alcoholic. I am endlessly fascinated with myself. Endlessly. What they told me in Alcoholics Anonymous was that having a resentment or holding an unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Okay, that's one way to think about it. And then this one, for some reason, bothers me more. I mean, it's more of a motivator. Having a resentment, holding unforgiveness, is like allowing someone else to live rent-free in your head. Nobody's living rent-free in my head. The thing about it is, though, some of us have been truly hurt and continue to be hurt. You guys, I've shared with you my personal story for a very long time. I mean, a number of times. I had in some ways, a very abusive childhood, and I had a lot to forgive. And then I thought, as I was writing this talk, it's such a fine line in there, because we think about the black folk among us who not only have ancestral pain, but also keep getting re-injured by what's going on in our world. We have gays and lesbians who keep getting re-injured by what's going on in our world. And so it's like the wound cannot heal sometimes. And so I'm sensitive, again, to the fact that this is a journey. Tomorrow's the 4th of July, and what I know that we get from staying true to this journey of forgiveness is freedom. Freedom from people living rent-free in our heads. Freedom from drinking poison. Freedom from all the health effects of chronic bitterness and anger and resentment. Freedom. And I want to say a little something about that before I go on to my next point. Our anger fuels us. Our resentments fuel us. They give us this false sense of energy, of life force. And I think there is always a fear that, well, if I lose my energy, what will I do? Will I not care about the things that I care about? Will I not care about a world that works for everyone? Will I not have the energy or the drive or the desire to show up at rallies and write letters to my congressman and do whatever it is that I engage in based on my anger? And the fact of the matter is, while you have that anger, you're not at choice. You're doing what you're driven to do. It is far when we have forgiven, we can act for something in love, not against something in anger. Does that make sense? Right? So we're free. Free. We are called, I think, to grow in the image and likeness of our Creator. That's what we're here for, right? To become more aligned with the indwelling presence that is God. And we know that this loving presence that is God holds nothing against anyone. It can't. It cannot. And so this journey of forgiveness is really about aligning ourselves with who it is that we say we are. We claim that we're precious children of the divine. We claim that there is a Christ consciousness. Not a Jesus that saves, but a Christ that dwells within. And we are called to align ourselves with that. But it's hard. It is hard to get to the place where I know that there's nothing to forgive. Or I am in loving embrace of all the perfectly imperfect things and people and situations in this world. And so what I know about embarking upon this journey of forgiveness, especially on the big stuff, is something that, once again, I discovered in Alcoholics Anonymous. See, I discovered a lot of my wisdom about, or I was imparted a lot of wisdom about not living with unforgiveness in AA because it causes people to drink. And to drink, if you're an alcoholic, is to go down a path that can lead you to 6 feet under in an untimely way. And you also do a lot of destruction in people's lives, right? And so there's a lot of work around releasing resentments, forgiving, getting present. The thing that I discovered in AA is that the choice to forgive is mine. I have to make the choice. But the power to forgive is not mine. The choice to forgive is mine. Right? And then as soon as I say yes to that, then this power and presence that we call God, or the hand of providence, whatever you want to call it, it says, yes, you do forgive. And then it's the sail in the wings, it's the wind in the sails. The sail in the wings, where'd that come from? It is the wind in the sails that allows us to move forward. We have to make the choice in order to activate it on our behalf. Ernest Holmes says it this way. We shall have to know that the truth we announce, in other words, I forgive, is superior to the condition which is to change. So I'm going to say, I am on the path of forgiveness. I'm in the process of forgiveness. Now, the condition may be that, oh, hell no, I'm not. That may be the actual condition that I'm dealing with at the moment. But the truth I speak is bigger than that. Why? Because that activates the divine on my behalf. The truth we announce is superior to the condition which is to change. We shall have to see that God in us recognizes God in the other person until the God in the other person recognizes God in us. This cannot be done by human will. It is only when we recognize the pure essence of the spiritual principle inherent and incarnate in each of us that we find that the thought arising from the atmosphere of spiritual realization has no adversary. This is one of the most powerful things he's ever said. We choose. God says yes. And no matter what the injury, we can forgive. No matter what. It feels like they're doing something to us. It does. But they're doing what they're doing. Out of pettiness, out of injury, out of history, out of habit. Fear, ignorance. Right. But if we make ourselves dependent on them, when they change, by God, I'm going to let them off the hook. Well, you know what? We don't make spiritual principle dependent on conditions. We don't. Because if we do that, who's got the power? They do. My dead brother. Some historical person who's not here anymore that did unthinkable things for our time. Or some guy that's still alive, still doing unthinkable things. A practitioner of this way of life should not be confused over any given form, but should know that any form which is not of the original harmony is subject to change. Any form which is not of the original harmony is subject to change. What Holmes is saying here is that to be in harmony, to be at peace, is our divine birthright. And we are aligning with that. And that nothing else in some ways is real, and everything else bows to that, the power of that original blessing and the power of the intention to align with it. One more time, Alcoholics Anonymous. There's this line in the big, it's called the Big Book, for those of you that don't know. There's this line, and the first couple times I read it, I threw the book across the room. Whenever I am disturbed, there is something wrong with me. Whenever I am disturbed, there is something wrong with me. My first job is to quiet the disturbance. Man, that made me mad. Really? But as long as I'm focused out there, I'm powerless. There is nothing in the world to me more distasteful as an experience than feeling like a victim. Ugh. Whenever I'm disturbed, there's something wrong with me. And I have to relearn that over and over and over again. Because even though, as Rumi says, the door is wide and open, I am tempted to go back to sleep. I am tempted to say, screw it, can't somebody else take care of this? But they can't. It's my stuff. The last thing I want to say today is, it's actually a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. Forgiveness is not an occasional act. It is a constant attitude. I've been on an MLK kick these last couple of years, and one of the things that I have been so moved by in his writings is his insistence to keep going back to the integrity of his own faith and his own belief, right? So he, at every turn, he was persecuted in one way or another, right? But at every turn in his writings, what are reflected is that he's angry, he's hurt, and yet he keeps going back to this bigger vision of what the world can be, and he understands that he's the one that has to be that. Forgiveness is not an occasional act, it is a constant attitude. One more Martin Luther King Jr. quote. I have decided to stick to love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. So, what do I want to call you to this week? If you're holding unforgiveness, if you're carrying a resentment, you're hurting yourself. You are hurting yourself. You are taking precious life energy and wasting it and denying yourself of your true vitality, of your true power. Feeling momentarily like it's somebody else's fault, and if they just fix it, I'd be fine, is tempting. But if you live there, it will poison you unto your death. It will. So this week, just be with the idea that you're willing to quit drinking poison, expecting someone else to die. And you are willing to evict, with some sort of delicious satisfaction, the people living rent-free in your head. Let's pray. I'm remembering that nature abhors a vacuum. And that as we do the work in consciousness, the work at the level of the soul, to excavate any old ideas that are unlike love, that life rushes in to fill us with more love, more energy, more possibility, more good. It is simply the way that balance is maintained. I'm remembering at this moment that there is one life. That life is God. It is bigger than all of us, within all of us, around all of us. And that it is the power that makes our choices stick. We choose. And that opens up the portal through which the divine is made manifest. We choose. We choose to free ourselves. And in this choosing, and in this freedom, we contribute to possibility on our planet. Peace in our politics, harmony in our homes, love. This day and every day, for good. And so it is.